I never thought I'd be the kind of man who would sit down and tell a story like this. I always believed that my marriage was solid, unshakable, built on love, trust, and the kind of bond that only grows stronger with time. But as I sit here, I realize how fragile trust can be, how quickly everything you thought was permanent can fall apart. My wife and I had been together for 10 years. 10 long years of laughter, struggles, family gatherings, quiet nights, and dreams for the future. If someone had told me back then that she would one day betray me, I would have laughed in their face. I would have defended her with every ounce of my being. But reality has a cruel way of making us see what we don't want to believe. It started with little things. Small changes in her behavior. She used to leave her phone lying around the house without a second thought. Suddenly, she became protective of it, almost like it was a newborn baby she couldn't let out of her sight. At first, I brushed it off. I told myself she was just being cautious, maybe work emails or something personal she didn't want anyone to see. But then came the late-night texts. The notifications she would quickly dismiss with a nervous laugh. The times she said she was meeting friends but came home later than usual, smelling faintly of a cologne that wasn't mine. My gut told me something was wrong. And as much as I didn't want to believe it, the signs were there, glaring at me every single day. I remember one night lying in bed beside her, watching her as she slept. I stared at the woman I thought I knew better than anyone else in the world. And for the first time, I realized I didn't know her at all. I felt like a stranger in my own marriage. The breaking point came one weekend. She told me she was going shopping with her sister. I knew her sister well, and I also knew her habits. She wasn't the kind of person who spent hours wandering through malls. My wife, on the other hand, came home late that night, her hair slightly messy, her smile forced. I didn't say a word, but inside I was boiling. I knew I had to find out the truth. And I knew I couldn't just accuse her without proof. So, I started planning. I bought a small recording device online. Nothing fancy, just something I could hide in her car. My hands shook the day I planted it. It felt wrong, like I was violating her privacy. But then again, hadn't she already violated the sacred vows we had made? Hadn't she already betrayed the trust that was supposed to be the foundation of everything? I told myself I needed to know. I needed to hear it with my own ears. The first few days, there was nothing unusual. Just her music playing, phone calls with her friends, and the occasional silence of the car ride. But then, one evening, I listened to the recording, and my heart sank. There was a man's voice. Deep, unfamiliar, casual at first, but then intimate. They laughed together, they talked about things that weren't innocent. And then, the words I will never forget. "I can't wait to see you again." My wife's voice responded, soft, almost shy. "Me too." I paused the recording. My hands were trembling. My chest felt heavy, like someone was pressing down on it. That was it. That was all the proof I needed. She was cheating on me. The next few days were a blur. I still acted normal around her. I smiled, I laughed when she laughed, I pretended everything was fine. But inside I was shattered. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every time she looked at me, I wondered how she could be so cruel, how she could lie to my face and then crawl into bed with me like nothing had happened. But here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just break you, it changes you. And for me, it lit a fire I never knew I had. I wasn't going to confront her immediately. No. I wanted her to feel what I was feeling. I wanted her to understand the depth of the pain she caused. I wanted to plan the perfect comeback. So, I started observing her more closely. I took note of her excuses, her lies, the times she slipped out of the house. I played dumb, but every time she left, I felt like I was adding another piece to the puzzle. I wanted to know everything. Who he was. Where they met. How long it had been going on. I didn't want just suspicion. I wanted the full story. One evening, she told me she was going out with her friends again. I waited for her to leave, then followed her. My heart was racing as I drove slowly behind her car, keeping a safe distance. She pulled into a quiet parking lot near a restaurant, and there he was. A man I had never seen before, leaning casually against his car, smiling as she approached. I watched as she hugged him, held on to him longer than a friendly embrace would allow. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight that my knuckles turned white. I wanted to storm out of the car and confront them right there. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I took photos. I captured every moment, every smile, every touch. Evidence. Cold, undeniable evidence. I felt sick to my stomach as I watched them walk into the restaurant together, laughing like two teenagers in love. It was like watching a movie where the villain wins and the hero stands powerless. Except this wasn't a movie. This was my life. That night, I didn't confront her. I didn't say a word. I waited until she came home, smelling faintly of wine, her eyes glittering with the kind of joy I hadn't seen in years. She looked at me, kissed me on the cheek, and said she was tired. I just smiled back and said goodnight. Inside, though, my plan was already unfolding. Over the next week, I gathered more evidence. I followed her a few more times, each time capturing more proof. Photos, recordings, everything I needed to expose her. But here's the twist. I didn't just want to expose her to me. I wanted the world to see. I wanted her family, her friends, everyone she had lied to know the truth. She had built an image of being the perfect wife, the devoted partner. I wanted to shatter that image into 1,000 pieces. I began to plan my comeback in detail. It wasn't going to be a confrontation filled with yelling and accusations. No, it was going to be calculated, precise, unforgettable. Something that would haunt her every time she looked in the mirror. I decided I would wait for the perfect moment. And that moment came sooner than I expected. Her birthday was coming up. We had planned a big dinner with family and close friends. She was excited, talking nonstop about what she wanted to wear, the decorations, the food. I smiled and nodded, playing the role of the supportive husband. But inside, I was preparing for the grand reveal. I spent days putting everything together. The recordings, the photos, even the text messages I managed to pull from her phone when she wasn't looking. Every piece of evidence was organized, ready to be displayed. And on the night of her birthday dinner, I was going to drop the bombshell in front of everyone. The night finally arrived. The restaurant was beautifully decorated, the table filled with family and friends who loved her dearly. She looked stunning, glowing with happiness, completely unaware of what was about to happen. We laughed, we ate, we toasted to her health and happiness. And then, when the moment felt right, I stood up. My heart was pounding in my chest, but my voice was steady. I tapped my glass to get everyone's attention. I just want to take a moment, I began, to say how much I love my wife. We've been through so much together, and tonight, I want to celebrate not just her birthday, but the truth of our marriage. She looked at me, smiling, her eyes filled with affection. And that's when I pressed play on the small speaker I had hidden under the table. The room went silent as the recording filled the air. Her voice. His voice. Their laughter. Their intimate words. Gasps echoed around the table. Her smile vanished, replaced by shock and horror. She tried to speak, but I wasn't finished. I pulled out the photos, laying them one by one on the table for everyone to see. Her with him. Her holding his hand. Her laughing in his arms. The room erupted in whispers and disbelief. Her face turned pale, her hands trembling as she tried to explain, to deny. But there was no denying the truth. It was all there, undeniable, unforgivable. And as I stood there, watching the facade crumble, I realized this was only the beginning of my comeback. Because exposing her was just step one. The real revenge, the real justice, was yet to come. The silence in the restaurant that night was deafening. Her birthday had turned into a nightmare she couldn't escape. I sat down slowly, my hands steady, my heart beating like a drum inside my chest. Everyone's eyes were on her, waiting for her to explain herself. My wife, The woman I once trusted more than life itself, sat frozen, her face pale, her lips trembling as she struggled to find words. "Please, it's not what it looks like," she stammered, her voice shaking. "You don't understand. It's not what you think." But the evidence was undeniable. Her sister gasped, her mother's face crumbled with shame, and her friends shook their heads in disbelief. She had always painted herself as the perfect daughter, the perfect wife, the perfect friend. In an instant, that image shattered into dust. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. I just sat there, calm and collected, watching as she squirmed under the weight of her lies. "Not what it looks like," I said, my voice steady but sharp. "Then please enlighten us. What exactly is a recording of your voice, telling another man you can't wait to see him again? What exactly are these photos of you wrapped in his arms? What is it, if not cheating?" She opened her mouth, closed it again, tears spilling down her cheeks. I made a mistake," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "It was a moment of weakness. I didn't mean for it to happen." The room erupted in murmurs. Her father shook his head in disgust, her mother covered her face with her hands, and her friends looked away, ashamed to even be sitting at the same table. My wife reached for me, desperation in her eyes. "Please, please don't do this here. Not in front of everyone. Let's talk about this privately." But that was the point. Privacy was what allowed her lies to thrive. Secrecy was what gave her the courage to betray me. I wasn't about to let her hide behind closed doors anymore. The truth had to be exposed, and I wanted her to feel every ounce of humiliation that I had felt. I leaned back in my chair, watching her crumble. "No, darling," I said coldly. "We're done talking privately. This is the truth, and everyone deserves to hear it." Her face twisted with shame and rage. She slammed her hands on the table, her voice rising. "Fine. Yes, I cheated. Is that what you want to hear? Are you happy now? But you weren't perfect either. You ignored me, you made me feel unwanted, unloved. I was lonely, and he made me feel alive again." The words cut deep, sharper than any knife. But instead of breaking me, they fueled me. She wanted to shift the blame onto me, to justify her betrayal. I could see the desperation in her eyes, the way she tried to claw her way out of the hole she had dug for herself. But there was no escape. I stood up slowly, towering over her. "I may not have been perfect," I said, my voice firm. "But I was loyal. I was faithful. I loved you with everything I had, even when things weren't easy. And you threw that away for cheap thrills and lies. You betrayed me, not just once, but over and over again. And tonight you get to live with the consequences." Her tears turned into sobs as she covered her face, unable to face the judgmental stares of the people around her. I didn't comfort her. I didn't reach out. I simply walked out of the restaurant, leaving her behind in a sea of broken trust and shattered pride. That night, as I drove home alone, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger, yes. Pain, of course. But also a sense of power. For the first time in months, I wasn't the victim. I wasn't the fool who was being played. I was in control. I had taken back the narrative, and she was the one left to pick up the pieces. But my plan wasn't finished. Exposing her publicly was only the first step. I wanted to rebuild my life on my terms, and I wanted her to watch as I thrived without her. That was my true comeback. The next morning, she came home, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She looked at me like a woman on the edge of desperation. "Please," she whispered, "can we talk? I know I hurt you, but can't we work this out? We've built a life together. Don't throw it all away." I laughed bitterly. "Work this out? You destroyed us the moment you let another man into your heart, into your life, into your bed. There's nothing left to work out." She dropped to her knees, sobbing. "I'll change, I promise. I'll never see him again. Just give me one more chance. Please. I love you." Her words felt empty, like poison wrapped in honey. Maybe once upon a time, I would have believed her. Maybe I would have given her that second chance. But not anymore. I had seen too much, heard too much. The woman begging in front of me was a stranger, not the wife I once loved. I told her flatly. Love isn't just words. Love is loyalty. Love is trust. And you killed both. We're done. Her sobs filled the room, but I felt nothing. No pity, no guilt, no regret. Just resolve. I started the process of separating our lives. Bank accounts, bills, the house, everything had to be divided. She fought me, tried to delay things, begged me to reconsider. But I was firm. I had already made up my mind. What she didn't know was that I had more than enough evidence to protect myself legally. The recordings, the photos, the text messages, they weren't just for public humiliation. They were my shield, proof of her infidelity that would ensure I didn't walk away empty-handed. And as I handled the practical side of things, I also focused on myself. I hit the gym. I reconnected with old friends I had lost touch with during my marriage. I spent time with family who reminded me of who I was before all the lies. Slowly, piece by piece, I rebuilt myself. But there was one more thing I wanted. One final piece to my perfect comeback. I wanted her to see me move on, to see me happy with someone else. Not out of spite, not because I needed to replace her, but because I wanted her to realize what she had lost. And fate, it seemed, was on my side. A few months later, I met someone. A woman who was kind, genuine, and full of life. She knew about my past, and she didn't judge me for it. She helped me heal in ways I didn't think were possible. For the first time in years, I felt alive again. Not because I was trying to prove anything, but because I was truly happy. When my ex-wife saw me with her for the first time, the look on her face said it all. Regret. Pain. The crushing weight of realizing she had destroyed something beautiful, only to be replaced by someone who valued me in ways she never could. That was my true victory. Not the exposure, not the humiliation, but the life I rebuilt after her. She had tried to break me, but in the end, she only made me stronger. And as I stood there, holding the hand of the woman who had helped me rediscover happiness, I realized something important. Revenge doesn't always come in the form of anger or destruction. Sometimes, the best comeback is living a life so full, so rich, so joyful, that the person who betrayed you has no choice but to watch from the sidelines, wishing they had never let you go. Moving on was never easy, but it was necessary. After months of healing, working on myself, and learning how to breathe without the weight of betrayal crushing my chest, I finally felt like I was living again. My new relationship gave me hope. My family saw me smiling again. My friends, who once worried I'd never recover, now said I looked stronger than ever. And in many ways I was. But as much as I tried to move forward, my ex-wife seemed determined to pull me back into the wreckage she had created. She started calling. At first, the calls were polite. "Can we talk?" she'd ask. Or, "I just want to explain." I ignored them. Then the calls turned desperate. "Please, I miss you. I can't live without you. I made a mistake." Still, I ignored them. But then they turned bitter. "You'll never find anyone better than me. She'll leave you too, just wait." Her words no longer hurt me. They only revealed how broken she had become. She thought she still had power over me, but the truth was, her hold on me had ended the moment I chose myself over her lies. Still, her persistence was annoying. I had to set boundaries. One evening, after weeks of constant calls, I finally picked up. "Listen," I said calmly. "Whatever we had is over. You destroyed it. Stop calling me. Stop trying to get back into my life. We are done." She was quiet for a long moment before whispering, "I know. I just can't stand to see you happy without me." Her words hit me like a strange mix of sadness and relief. She wasn't sorry for what she had done. She was only sorry that she lost. And that was when I realized, once again, that walking away had been the best decision of my life. But she didn't stop there. She tried to interfere in my new relationship, sending anonymous messages to the woman I was dating, trying to spread lies, hoping to plant seeds of doubt. It backfired. My girlfriend showed me every message, and instead of pulling us apart, it only brought us closer. We laughed about it, realizing how desperate she had become. My ex-wife was a ghost, haunting her own mistakes. Meanwhile, my life blossomed. My career advanced, I bought a new home, and I built a future I was proud of. Every milestone was a reminder that I had survived the storm and come out stronger on the other side. The final nail in the coffin came a year later. I heard through mutual friends that the man she had cheated on me with had left her. Apparently, he had been seeing other women the entire time. She had given up everything, her marriage, her reputation, her dignity, for a man who treated her like she was disposable. The irony wasn't lost on me. She had betrayed loyalty for lust, and in the end, she was betrayed too. When I found out, I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel triumph. I just felt nothing. She had become irrelevant to me. Her downfall wasn't my victory. My victory was the life I had built without her. Still, it served as a reminder: choices have consequences, and betrayal always comes back to bite. Months later, she reached out one final time. A long message filled with apologies, regrets, and desperate words. She admitted she had ruined the best thing in her life. She admitted that the man she chose had never loved her. She said she thought about me every day and wished she could turn back time. I read the message carefully, then deleted it without replying. There was no point. The man she had betrayed was gone. I wasn't him anymore. I had grown, evolved, and moved forward. She was stuck in the past, clinging to ashes, while I was building fire. And here's the truth I learned through it all: betrayal doesn't define you. It may break you, it may shatter your heart, but it also gives you the chance to rebuild stronger than before. My wife's betrayal was the most painful experience of my life, but it was also the catalyst for my greatest transformation. I learned that love without loyalty is meaningless. I learned that trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to repair. And I learned that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living a life so full and joyful that the person who hurt you can do nothing but watch from the sidelines, drowning in their regret. Looking back now, I don't see myself as a victim. I see myself as a survivor. A man who walked through fire and came out on the other side, scarred but stronger. My wife's betrayal didn't end me, it freed me. So if you're listening to this story and you've been through something similar, hear me clearly: you are not weak for being hurt. You are not foolish for trusting. You are human. And when someone betrays you, remember that their actions reflect who they are, not who you are. You can choose to stay broken, or you can choose to rise. I chose to rise. And as for my wife? Well, she'll always be a reminder of what I will never allow in my life again. A lesson carved into my soul, teaching me to value loyalty, honesty, and respect above all else. In the end, my perfect comeback wasn't the recordings, the photos, or the public exposure. It wasn't the humiliation she faced at her birthday dinner. My perfect comeback was standing tall, moving on, finding real happiness, and knowing deep in my heart that I am better without her. Because the truth is, nothing hurts a cheater more than seeing the one they betrayed living a life they can only dream of. And that was my victory.